So actually, as we've bonded and been through lockdown together and done all these rehearsals together, we've become really close, and we're all exploring things that we didn't do before, which I think is really useful for all of us.
Hi, Romy, Sophie, and Sam. Nice to have you here.
Hi.
So the three of you collectively are known as the Willow Trio. And we're going to focus on talking about the work that you do as a group together, because we have individual conversations lined up with each of you. So if you're interested in learning about the musical journey of these three lovely ladies, you're going to have to check those out. But for the purpose of today, let's talk about what you do as a class act trio. Did I get the word right? How many ways can you say this word?
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Correct me if I didn't get it right, because I tried to practice it a couple times ahead of the interview, but I'm not a Gaelic speaking person by any stretch of imagination. Okay, so first of all, whose idea it was to form a harp trio?
Well, actually, it was none of ours. So,
Oh, okay.
We have a colleague and our old teacher at the Conservatoire of Scotland, Heather Downey. She used to teach me and she used to teach Romy, and she was saying to me in one of our lessons, hey, I really want to get this class act trio up and running. So eventually, towards the end of my time at the Conservatoire, I was like, well, why don't we bring Romy on board? So it was me and Romy and Heather, and we did a series of concerts in Christmas 2019 where we arranged the Nutcracker for 3 harps. And then after that, because Heather lived quite far away, we kind of decided, let's pop a wee pin in that because the distance was too much, although we had great time and the concert was amazing. It was really good. And then around kind of springtime, maybe like January, February, me and Romy were chatting. We were like, oh, we really enjoyed the trio. It was just so much fun. And we'd met Sophie on Instagram.
The magic of the internet.
Yeah. Sam was like, oh, did you see that this harpist has moved into Glasgow and we can be friends with her?
It actually started as coffee and cake, which is, a good way for any friendship to start, I think.
Yes.
So I felt really, really lucky that Sam and Romy got in touch with me, because I studied down in Manchester, which is in England, so about 3.5 hours away. And I think when you move somewhere new, it can be quite difficult to connect with the musical community, or it takes a bit of time. I find more than that, I was just a bit shy, which I think is surprising to both Sam and Romy right now. But it's making those first steps. So it was really great that they got in touch, and I'm really pleased you did.
And
That's awesome.
From there, I think we started planning kind of a themed concert series, right, with the birds.
I think, did we do our first concert in March, just before lockdown? I think it was the weekend before lockdown we did our first concert. And the Willow Trio was supporting Sophie as the main act. She has this amazing show, which she'll tell you more about later on in another conversation. So we supported Sophie. And then after that, we came up with the themed concerts for the Pilgrim Open Day in
September. Yeah. So I think one thing that we maybe all agree on is that often it can be quite tricky to work out a programme that is going to entice audiences, and often we think a theme's really, really good. So the theme of birds was just great fun because it meant you could do classical pieces like Swan Lake, but also more popular things. So I did a cinematic orchestra arrangement, but Sam also did a Beatles arrangement of Blackbird.
And I inserted the oyster catchers because those are also birds.
So it was a lovely way to blend all these different genres together into one concert, I think.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And speaking of different genre, I think the three of you, if I don't understand correctly, have a slightly different background and sort of music that you primarily play. And how has that solo career of yours influenced what you're doing as a group, aside from what you have shared already?
I think in arranging for the trio and writing for the trio, all of us have a pretty distinct sort of style and voice, which I also hear when I just listen to you guys playing any of your solo stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the same person.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I hadn't actually thought of that when we do our solo, but it is, I think we all take on not kind of definitive genres, but we do have certain styles that we kind of warm to, I think. And I think it's meant that we kind of end up merging all these genres within the trio. It works quite nicely.
Hmm.
And even just further than genres, we've all got like different ways of playing. So I feel like I'm quite a harsh and energetic player. And if I'm doing an arrangement of saying the same piece that Sophie's will be lovely and beautiful and warm. And you're like, oh, this is gorgeous. And then I'll be like, yeah,
So many harmonies.
Yeah. But I do think that also influences how I write for you guys. Like, I'll be picking parts on and go, oh, Sam will really love to play this one, and oh, Sophie will really like to play this one. So I kind of look for things I feel you'd enjoy and like kind of shine in.
I like that synergy and sort of understanding each other's string and what they enjoy and making it enjoyable for all three of you to play together. And I think it comes together really nicely so far from what I've seen. So good job in doing that. What kind of music in general can we expect from the Rio Trio? How would you describe the style or a vision for the group?
I think that's a hard one. So we've been so far very project based, and each of the different projects that we've got has such a distinct genre that we really tailor it for. So we've got a project all about Swan Lake. So it'll be Tchaikovsky's music, and then we're sort of thinking about maybe how to add in our own airs and arrangements to go in with that sort of style. But then we have our EP, Oyster Catchers, which is all Gaelic music inspired by the Cowal Peninsula. So we're looking very much at the Scottish traditional music for that side of things. But then we also have little arrangements of pop.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we've been working on projects quite intensely, it's quite nice to have I'm going to say light relief from that, which is where the pop comes in. My I'm about to say guilty pleasure, but I'm not even that guilty about it. I love arranging Taylor Swift, so sometimes we'll add in some kind of pop stuff, and that's just a nice fun thing. And I think it can be quite nice. I mean, obviously, we're hoping to be playing to live audiences quite soon, but it's also quite nice for audiences to get things that they can really relate to that I think are kind of swimming around their sound world in day-to-day life.
Well, since you mentioned the EP, let's talk about this EP project that you're working on. I think you've been releasing music slowly. How's that progressing? How's that project coming along? And what kind of music are you planning to inject into this EP for us? I know you mentioned some Gaelic traditional music. Is that where the EP is going to go?
Yeah, so for this EP, we were really fortunate. We got funded by a group, small arts grant in Scotland called TASCA, which is devolved from our bigger funding pot, Creative Scotland. And they fund things that are related to the traditional arts. So it really, it was quite good for us, I think, in a way, because it really targeted what we were going to do with the EP, and it really relates to that kind of Gaelic traditional music scene. So it's mainly focused on that, but with different kind of relations to different aspects. So, for example, Oyster Catchers, Romy will tell you more about it, but it's based kind of nature-based, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess so is Mather's Bay, actually, as well.
Oh yes, yeah. So on the EP, it's a collection of compositions and arrangements. There's five in total.
Yeah.
And Romy's done 3, and I've done 2 of them. And they're either from collections. The 2 which I've done, Mahish Bay and Ueavaj. That's just not how you say that, by the way. My pupils will be listening to this and they'll be like, oh, Sam, that's not how you say it. I've told you this before. So they are from the Simon Fraser collection, which is a big collection of Highland tunes that Simon Fraser went around in like the late 1800s, early 1800s.
It's usually around that.
1790s. Olden
I'm not
times.
sure.
He went around in the olden times and collected these tunes and then put them down in a big book. So that's often where we get our traditional source material from.
Yeah, I also use books like that for the other pieces on that. You could.
And when is this EP set to complete? Because you have been releasing pieces, but I don't know what your release schedule looks like. Can you let our audience know when they can find the full EP?
we're set to finish releasing all the
Tracks?
Yeah, I was thinking songs, tunes, tracks. Your
Let's call them tracks.
In August. So at that point, it will be like the complete EP, and it will be streamable everywhere. It will be on Bandcamp.
We should say that part of being awarded this funding by TASDA is that it is freely available.
Yeah.
So we want people to be able to experience the three Clásachs together and experience a bit more about Scottish culture. So although it is on Bandcamp, and feel free to donate, absolutely do not feel obliged to. Please go and experience it for free if you would like to.
Yeah, just hit download and
Yeah.
I don't think we even get
Awesome.
this.
No, it's pay what you want. Like just take it.
And it really, really is.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd rather people experienced it.
Yes.
Yeah, speaking of experiencing free harps together, that is something, well, a new experience for me, because as a harp player, I actually have not played with other harp players, other than my kids, believe it or not. There's not a lot around in where I am. So what do you think makes free harp playing together so special? What makes this trio different than, say, solo harp?
So, do you want to?
I don't know. This is my thinking side.
So, well, firstly, nothing's ever in tune.
Well, there is that. Honestly, recording. That was a hard day of tuning. My goodness,
Yeah.
it took a while. But one thing that I often think of is I think there's aspects of it that are really special for listeners. But I find as a player, I find it a really, really lovely thing because I think the harp is quite a distinct instrument in a lot of ways. In the way that you learn it, the way that you practice it. And I think playing with two people that really understand that is really special because I think often I play in a couple of different ensembles and I absolutely love it, but you don't quite understand exactly the practicalities that go into it in a way that when you're playing with people that do understand, that's really special. And I think it makes it really, really comfortable, I think, in a way. For listeners, I think it's a bit of a different thing in the sense that you can experience the versatility of the instruments and all the different timbres all at the same time in a way that when you're just listening to one harp, over time you can experience them, but not quite in the same depth.
Yeah. I also think it's really fun that you have to write your own stuff for it. There's
there isn't much out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to exercise your different skills too, right? Other than a performer, you get to compose and arrange for free harps, which I think is a pretty cool experience. Yeah. And on that note, I'm going to talk to each of you about some of the music that I have seen on your YouTube channel. So first question I have for Romy. Oyster Catcher was originally created for solo harp, and you adapted for the trio. What kind of things do you have to keep in mind when you're taking a solo piece and making it workable for free harps? And do you have to make a lot of adjustment in order to make it work? What was your experience like?
To be honest, usually what I do is I start off by splitting it up in a way that it's easier for each individual person. So say you're playing a really intense bit of melody and chords, I'll let one person focus on just the melody and the other person on just the chords. And then once you've like split it up like that, and it feels quite minimal, and suddenly you feel like there's a lot of space to start adding other like, quote unquote instruments and all the different other sounds that you can get from other harps that you wouldn't get by yourself. Just because maybe you're doing like an extended technique or something that will need both of your hands, or just not have the range with just two hands. Yeah, I think that's the main things, adding other, I'll call it instrumentation if you think of it like a orchestra or a band.
Yeah, you definitely get a richer sound. I think that's how I would describe it when you listen to the version with the three of you versus the solo.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Sophie, you arranged Arrival of the Birds by Cinematic Orchestra for the trio, and I really enjoy listening to it. It's very beautiful, very atmospheric. I think that reflects sort of your musical style quite well because you play more contemporary music. Do you see yourself doing something more along those lines for the trio?
Yeah, that is kind of my hope. So for me, I think when I started playing the harp, I'll go into this more in our own chat, but having started on traditional music when I was younger and then going to very classical music, I really found my stride in kind of the area that I related to most when I started to explore more contemporary music and really saw the versatility of the instrument through extended techniques and different areas. And I think that's the thing I like to show, is just the different things that the harp can convey and portray. I do that in a way with solo, but also in what I listen to. I always felt slightly guilty when I was studying because I didn't listen to classical music as a whole. I was very much into indie bands more than anything else, actually, and a lot of pop stuff. So I do really enjoy kind of putting that on the instrument and having it do the opposites. I think a lot of people, or at least what I strive to do, is I like to take classical music to other audiences, but I also like to take other music to classical music fans. So I think that's what I really enjoy doing, and yeah, I would hope to expand on that for trio as we go along. Yeah,
Looking forward to that. And Sam, you have arranged a couple of classic pieces for the trio as well, and one of my favorite is the Made with Flaxen Hair. I cannot say the original title to save my life, but I think we all know what that piece is. And what is it like for you to take something that's usually for a solo instrument, because it was written for solo piano, and we hear it on the pedal harp a lot, and you put it into a trio, and on a lever harp, no less. So how was that like for you? And do you enjoy taking classical music and breaking it up for a trio to play together?
So I actually went from a different step. So my first experience with this piece was from Nigel Kennedy, who's a violinist, playing it with an orchestra. So as a kid, I learned the violin, and I was obsessed. I still am obsessed with Nigel Kennedy and his greatest hits album.
Can confirm.
Yes, I love that song. So actually, I came from that direction. And yes, I play it on the pedal harp and I play it on the piano, and I know the solo bits. But whenever I hear it in my head, I hear like the flutes and the strings. And so I arranged it with the fact that we were going to be playing it live in mind, and I wanted to make it really visual for the audience with the 3 Klarzaks. It's such a visual arrangement. You can see exactly what each of us is doing on the strings at any given time. So I like to pass elements of the tune around, almost like it's in 3 different voices, a bit like how Nigel Kennedy split it up across the orchestra. Totally ripped off his arrangement, by the way. And then for the really hard chromatic bits, split it so that the lever changes weren't super awkward. It's kind of harks back to what Romy was saying about making it slightly simpler for all 3 of us, because yes, you can do amazing things really quickly with sleight of hand, and like you can play really chromatic stuff if you're really clever about it on the Klarzak. But there is part of me that thinks, when there's 3 of us, why would we do that? Why would we not relax and play something a little bit easier, which allows us to fully communicate with the audience and communicate with each other and not feel nervous about anything? Yeah, I'm a big fan of easy music.
I like that, and I think it comes out very elegant, right? When you watch the video, and none of you are rushing it, and you're able to, like you said, fully communicate the music. So I think that's a very clever use of multiple harps. If you have free, why not? And speaking of working together, how difficult it is to coordinate 3 people and practice and collaborate on projects.
Well, if there is a national lockdown, it's not very hard.
It's great.
No, I think we were really, really lucky. Not lucky, obviously, but the big silver lining to be found in lockdown was that we were all able to spend so much time building the foundations for the trio, I think.
Yeah.
Especially as it was just the weekend after our first concert, and we lived just down the road from Sophie in her studio. So once we were allowed to start working together again, it was like, well, what is anyone else doing on a Friday morning? Off we go. And it was great. It was like one of the actual highlights of lockdown was, we might not have anything on 6.5 days of the week, but we know what we're doing the other half day. it's going to Sophie's to drink coffee and play the Klaza.
And then you're like spreading out all the little sort of homework that you're doing in between, like, oh, and then I have all week to prepare my arrangement of it. I'm really looking forward to a rehearsal on Friday.
Yeah,
You come in with your folder full of paper.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And I think it is really handy because we've had that and we have rehearsed so regularly that I think it's now quite important to all three of us that we keep it going. So as things do, touch wood, continue to get a little bit livelier and busier, we'll still really want to make the rehearsals happen.
Mhm.
And so they will.
Yes.
Sounds like you got into a really good routine during the lockdown, which is going to benefit you as a group moving forward. And in the in your dockets right now, other than the EP, what other projects have you got going for the trio?
Who wants to go?
So we've had such a great time with funding this year. We've been really, really fortunate. And there's a small arts grant in Glasgow called the Glasgow Connected Arts Network. And they really put an emphasis on trying to get art and make it accessible for people in kind of areas where the arts aren't quite so popular and not quite so accessible. And with that in mind, we have a new project for children. It's participatory arts, and I feel like Sam and Romeo both want to tell you about the puppets.
Yes. So I'm very excited about this. It's Swan Lake, except it's for 7 to 10-year-olds. And we've taken, because Swan Lake is based on kind of the folklore story of the animal bride, you find it all across the world, that same motif. And there's one in Denmark, which is the 7 Swans. So we've taken that story, but we've kind of set it in Scotland. So when the original story, the princess gets banished from her kingdom, she's going to get banished to Scotland, and she meets all of these friends,
And she's learning about Scottish culture.
So there'll be a bit, because it's participatory, so everything's going to have actions with the kids. Kids are going to have to get involved. There's one bit where the princess is with her new friend. She's going to be walking the Tweed. So we've actually been sponsored by
the Shetland Wool Company, which Shetland is where I'm from originally. It's not quite so random.
They've given us.
And I know Shetland because I'm a knitter.
Oh, of course. Yeah. But, so we're getting wool from them. So
Yes, they've given us
awesome.
the Tweed for us to actually do the physical walking with, and we'll teach the kids a walking song. And then throughout this, Sophie and Romy will be playing versions of Swan Lake, but on 2 Klazaks.
Yeah.
Whilst I narrate the story at the front, we have this a ballet dancer who we've worked with before who will be joining us as well, and I'll have puppets, and I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So we have that, and then we have a slightly bigger scale project, not bigger, for a more adult audience, I think is the right word.
Grown-up Swan Lake.
A grown-up Swan Lake, less puppetry, but still with a dancer, and we'll be doing the whole suite. That's the idea.
Yeah.
You're really taking the bird theme to
Yes.
We're taking
With
it to
extreme.
new extremes.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, for audience who are hoping to play harp ensemble with other harp players, what are some of your suggestions and tips on getting started, and what are some of the benefits you see in playing with other harpists?
So I do a lot of teaching with Harp Bazaar, which Romy will now be running the Glasgow chapter of Harp Bazaar. If anyone in Glasgow would like to,
It's like a harp circle, a
Yeah.
social get together, learn a tune, and play together.
and across all the different Harp Bazaars which we've got, we had one in Helensburgh, there's one up in Dunblane, and one in Glasgow. Occasionally, all of the children and young people would come together to meet to do these huge ensembles. And you see it amongst the people they get much better at sight reading, much better at playing in rhythm, because that's something that if you're playing by yourself when you're first beginning, it's really hard to work on those things. Your confidence improves. It's just generally all round good to play with other people. So yeah, do it as much as you can.
It's really fun. As well.
Awesome. And for someone like myself who can really access other harp player very easily, and we have to practice online with other harpists, is there anything that you would recommend in terms of how we can approach it? Have you ever had that experience? We can cut this bit out if no one has anything to offer. I'm just curious.
What I would suggest is, if you've got a teacher or if you've got a friend, you each record your parts separately and then send them to each other and then have a go playing along with them so that you get that opportunity of playing along. The problem with Zoom and with all the other different internet distancey things is that there's always that latency, so you can't play along together at the same time. But I think playing along with videos, playing along with recordings is great. Even having a wee jam session, so popping on a song, any song you like from Spotify, work out what key it's in, or just go online and find the chords, and then just have a jam along, like set your harp in that key and just noodle.
I like that. I'll have to noodle away on my own one day, because I do like my pop song. It's hard to find other people to play with sometimes, and like you said, there's not a lot of arrangement out there too for harp ensemble. I think I've only had one guest so far that has written a lot of harp ensemble music, and then there's the three of you. Is there any suggestions for harp ensemble resource that you can give our audience?
Yes, so Harp Bazaar has been involved in the fascias, both local and nationally, for quite a few years. So we take our different ensembles and our different weekly meeting groups, and we'll have arranged music of all different levels for that. So if you contact either myself or Heather Downey, then we'll have resources. Mine, I mean, I'm probably not going to type them up and make them really fancy, but I also just give them away for free. So, you know, it's free, isn't it? So
Awesome. Any favorite moments that you have experienced as a group so far that you want to tell our audience about?
Do you know what springs to mind? Mones. So we had a really, really lovely trip for a few days when we were able to travel a little bit last year. And there's a lovely place in Scotland in Perthshire called Aberfeldy, and there's a resort there called Mones. And I look back at the shambles of 2020 and really think we just had the nicest few days where we went on a few walks and had some lovely dinners and played a lot of harp. And it really makes me smile every time I think about it. So,
and you know what? We did our funding application for Tasca there. So, so we did that, and that's how
frantically.
I ended up with that EP. Yeah, it's like, oh no, the deadline.
And the three of you obviously are very good friends. And how has that helped the team dynamic in sort of building what you're doing together?
I think it's been really helpful for chilling me out. So Sam and Romy might be able to comment that I have sometimes got quite a focus on efficiency and effectiveness. And while that's sometimes really useful, it sometimes has its slight stresses that it maybe adds that are somewhat unnecessary. So I think one thing that's been really nice is as we've been playing more, we have got closer, and it's made it all feel a lot more relaxed for me, actually, which is really nice.
Saying that, I think you're being a bit harsh on yourself, because it is really good to have that efficiency and driving force, because we've all got...
We need at least one person to...
Well, we've all got little quirks, haven't we? So I will start a million projects, and I will make channels for all of these... there's been some wild ones. Millions of projects, all of these channels in Slack. And then they'll just quietly get forgotten. And then the ones which actually matter, Sophie can be like, right, let's do this, let's do that.
Yeah. Good balance.
Yeah.
Well, but...
Yeah, it resonated with me so much because we also have a trio behind Talking Harp. And I think about how different we are, but we're all joined together because of the love of the harp and how we work with each other and complement each other. And I think that alone is a good reason to have a couple of harp buddies to play the hardware, just to help each other out in ways that we didn't think we needed.
I think that's important, because I think as musicians, if you want to grow and challenge yourself and do all these new things, you need to really trust the other people that you're with. So we weren't, well, me and Romy were friends before, but we didn't really know Sophie. So actually, as we've bonded and been through lockdown together and done all these rehearsals together, we've become really close, and we're all exploring things that we didn't do before, which I think is really useful for all of us.
You mentioned a lot about nature, and I remember you had talked about filming some videos in the nature. Can you tell us about that, and what can we expect in these videos?
Yeah, we're doing some music videos for some of the tracks on our EP. So we're trying to find places somewhat close-ish to us that we feel kind of capture the atmosphere of all the pieces. So we've done a piece at the waterside at the canal, and we're going to film on the water on Loch Lomond just to get some footage of that blend into a different piece. We went to the Willow Tea Rooms, which is designed by Macintosh, which is a really influential Scottish architect, artist.
The inspiration behind your name, in fact.
Yeah, the Willow Tea Rooms, Willow Trio.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it, actually, the boat trip, because we always said with this arrangement, it's a tune called What Care I for the Minister, and we always said it feels like you should be just hanging out on a boat in the sunshine in a very relaxed way, so that's what we're off to do.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to have to keep an eye out for the videos in the YouTube channel. And other than YouTube, how else can we stay in touch with what the Willow Trio is working on?
So we've got Facebook and Instagram, where you can find us at Willow Trio Harps.
And a website.
And I was going to say a shiny new website.
It's very shiny.
Yeah. Is that willowtrioharps.co.uk?
I think just the willowtrio.co.uk.
We're going to find out and put the correct link in the description for you.
But yeah, it has a news feed, and it also links to all our other social medias.
That would be a very good starting point.
Yeah, you can just send us a message, really. We just love a chat.
We're fairly social.
It's got a contact form.
And in the next year or two, where do you see taking the group to? What is your short-term vision? And maybe you have a long-term vision too. I don't know. What can you tell us about the future of the trio? What would you like it to be?
I think we should play at all the festivals.
Yeah, like that.
I think at this point, one thing about when you've not been playing live for so long is you really just really want to play to anyone that'll listen. And
so I have so much material.
Exactly. One thing that I would particularly love, actually, is I have a very ridiculous fascination and love of Canada, in fact. So I would really love for us to come over. I know there are a lot of Scottish societies, and I think that's something that maybe not over the next year, but hopefully in the future we could maybe look at doing. That would be a bit of a dream for me. So.
Yeah, I heard there's quite a bit going on the East Coast. I'm unfortunately on the West Coast, so I need to go and visit. If you ever come and play in Canada, I will have to make a trip to visit the three of you.
Hopefully we can try and arrange a wee tour, although I forget how big Canada is, you know. It's
yeah, we're the second largest country landmass wise on Earth. So yeah, you're gonna have to spend a lot of time in Canada if you come over and make your way from the East to West Coast. That would
You'll never
lovely.
get rid of me. This is the thing.
Yeah, I have to drag you.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending the time and talk to us about your work. I really enjoy seeing the three of you working together. I can see the chemistry in the videos and I can feel it in the conversation. I hope you're going to have a great time playing to a live audience really soon. And we're going to come back and talk to Sam and Sophie later individually about their solo careers. So tune in, and we're going to keep in touch and check out your new videos as they come out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah,
It's been lovely
thank
to
you.
talk with you.
Yeah, great to have you here.